Simone leads the charge of the initial invasion forces out of the various entrances to the straightaway. It's approximately 1.5 kilometers in length, down to a foreboding forked tower with lines of formidable defenses awaiting the impending assault. There's turret emplacements, barricades lined with riflemen, Malachite eager to countercharge, and even a few lightly armed vehicles tactically parked to give additional support. Seeing how hilariously ill-equipped her and her people are to hope to push through, Simone's heart begins to sink. However, something else offers an impactful distraction from the bleakness ahead. The stars above are open to them with a light, energetic sheen. Beyond it is a sight she didn't previously dare to hope for. Freshly arrived Terran Union ships, in almost full display, slugging it out with Combine and Cali ships. Each Union ship is branded with the animal logo Simone can't help but shake her head astonished at. She almost joined up with the Warthogs once upon a time, but a galaxy endangering Cold had other plans. Despite being the face of every annoying stereotype of Terrans, and the Union as a whole, there is a reason why they are still a living relic from the days of being Central's dogs of war. The Redhead watches as drop shuttles sink down past the energy field around the stations and releases seeds consisting of pill-shaped pods and larger bullet-shaped pods. Hundreds and hundreds rain down, a heavy portion aiming right for this gradual downhill straightaway. Feeling a gauntlet slapped down on her pauldron, Simone looks over to a fully armoured Thorn. At his side are Devon and Brandy, all three armed to the teeth and coated in marks and soot of visceral conflict. "Good to see you made it too, Red," Thorn chuckles. "You too. Seems like we're getting a little help," Simone says with heavy air, realizing she had been holding it in. "They sent the swine, huh?" Brandy muses, as the pods come down ever closer and begin to engage anti-grav deployment measures. Brandy then narrows her eyes and double-checks her comm and direct communication systems in her helmet. Are they really?" she starts to say, almost begging to question her own ears. "They are. Guess they never got the memo that those pods were designed for stealth deployments," Simone confirms, as the distant sound of loud, intense music, electric guitar music with bombastic primal drums and angelic choir, encompasses the air above. "They are somehow both an utter embarrassment and deep pride of our people," Thorn says, before slapping the back of Simone's caped shoulder. "Lead the way through that coming chaos, King Arthur," he encourages, in another only slightly joking tone. Rolling her eyes, Simone's grip on Vervain tightens. There's a healthy dose of truth in the old man's sentiment. The surviving forces that are first deployed here seem to wait for her order before fully pushing. There's Grat, who, although trained to a very competent standard, are still fighting in an unimaginable circumstance and setting. The Mick, Wataf, Cali, and various central species present know just how dangerous the path ahead is, even with the Union's much-needed support. Although the situation is not as bleak as it initially seemed, a lot more death is impossible to avoid. Spirits have not yet fully waned, but are on uneasy footing, to say the least. Marching forward, Simone uses her helmet to broadcast at the max volume it can output. "Listen up! There's no turning back. Sure, the path behind us is clear at the moment, and anyone can bound back on their ship and take their chances with the chaos around the station. If anyone's lucky enough, maybe they'll be able to desert the field completely and make it back home. See loved ones again. Live lives to their fullest, while possible. But understand something. If we don't stop what's coming here, and now, then whatever we run back to would only be a far more temporary thing. Fleets will burn. Worlds will fall. Everyone's subjugated. That's why there's no going back." She slows her pace to point ahead. "There's either moving forward, or we decide to lose. All those loved ones, and every stranger you'll never meet are on the line, depending on what we decide here in this moment. Make yours, and I'll make mine. For my family, my friends, the galaxy as a whole, and myself, I choose to keep moving forward. Just as the Warthog pods begin to land, in relegated squads throughout the first half of the straightaway, Simone digs her heel into the solid floor and lurches ahead in a bolting charge. She's far faster than those behind her, but from the sheer floor vibrations nearly matching the ones ahead, in the inferno of chaos from Warthogs engaging the Combine's first half of defences amongst them. Immediately, as she begins to enter the fray, she bears witness to what's likely the single largest Terran-on-Terran conflict in over several hundred years. Although their planet's destruction came from horrendous wars over resources and corporate greed, their necessity to band together as a single people, as the stars accepted them, forged the strongest unification the apes have ever known. Although these terrorists are overall a dramatic minority, they still prove that Terran's tribalistic nature has never been shaken, and even to this day is one of their greatest weaknesses. Well, that, and more specifically being brainwashed into fascism. Maybe if Central didn't cast the Union to its own devices, for old enemies to turn on, then the bitter mindset that Terrans stand alone would not have propagated to such a state, where now, in a paradoxical twist, this Combine are more than willing to subject themselves to another grand power, just to have that half step above all others in the universe. Even at the cost of their own freedom, they can only see the chance to put others further below them. It's a downright faulty feature in Terrans. However, it's a fault that can be overcome, and if the Terran Union as a whole learned anything in its long turbulent history, it's that the only good fascists are dead ones. Using a recently shattered crab corpse as a launch pad, Simone leaps over a contended barricade, a hard light shield on one arm and her plasma colt aiming at a turning manned turret. Firing a burst of plasma, she fires at the thing to get its attention. As it indeed panic turns towards the new arrival as she landed, a Terran sapper with a tusked helmet comes soaring in with a back thruster, slams a brick-shaped device onto the encased turret, before kicking off at nearly the same speed. The stuck-on brick flashes, but doesn't explode as many would expect. However, the turret abruptly stops turning and pauses in place for a moment. Then the back hatch cracks open, with a spillage of tremendous heat and fire. The single operator backs out with flaming holes shotgunned through them. Another tusked Terran with a semi-bulky backpack runs up, casually shoots the head of the dying Combine soldier once, and steps in the still heated interior of the turret. Though they are not inside for very long, stepping back out, they are manipulating indicators on a forearm screen. Not a few seconds later, the now unmanned turret jolts to life and begins to turn, but now towards a stubborn terrorist position that managed to hold out mostly intact. The turret lights up on the location with almost gleeful intensity, firing explosive rounds that it wasn't using previously. Ahead, as Simone continues forward and popping shots at every opportunity, her path is crossed by a Union Terran, hip-firing straight at a charging Titanic Blue Malachite. Although the redhead tries to contribute to stopping the oversized crab, she's too far and unable to achieve much before a spearing claw runs the Terran through the chest and lifts for their helmet to meet jaws. Although dropping their rifle upon the sudden bodily trauma, the Terran doesn't hesitate further to yank a grenade from their belt and jam their entire arm into the opening crab maw. The crunch of armor and bone is heard only a split standard second after a concussive blast as the flat face of the Malachite explodes outwards, bathing the dying Terran in both crab and their own vaporized flesh. Members of the Terran's team are rushing there after the stalemate crumbles down to the floor in hopes that the medic can manage to at least give the fallen Terran the long-term victory. Though as Simone passes them up in her continuous movement, she swears to glance down at just the very moment the Warthog Terran's life escapes their visible eyes. It can't have been more than a fraction of a second, but it's like a still frame that lingers in the redhead's mind as she presses on. Cole steps towards the entrance doors of what looks to be a school. From their state, it appears that someone else with targets in mind has made it here before him. They dented in, and locks melted through. Whether his targets are alive or dead, His Manar beasts seem to insist upon entering, as they still retain the scents they hunt for. Casually entering, his comm receives a call. "Chief, their comm systems are back up. Do we have the order to evacuate?" one of his officers inquire. Cole muses over what to do for a quick second. "Hold positions for 5 minutes, then pull out," he orders. "Yes, Chief," the officer replies before the call ends. Grimacing at how close this operation is truly turning out to be, Cole picks up his stride. He only gets so far before seeing a strange sight. Residents, scattered in prone positions everywhere in corners and along walls. He assumes they have all been slain, but as his helmet scans for life signs, he's even more surprised to see they are all alive, for now at least. They were hit by some toxin that paralyzed and rendered them unconscious. Yet if not attended to within a few hours, they'll begin to experience organ failure and perish all the same. Whoever came through here didn't care about casualties, and yet didn't want to make a noticeable scene. Perhaps they simply didn't want to bother with any resistance, and this was the simplest option afforded them. Though surely there would have been a few wearing some fashion of ventilated helmets. The man's consideration is clarified as he steps out of the hallway lobby and into the cafeteria. Tables are turned over, others outright obliterated, and the smell of still very fresh blood hangs in the air. Walking through the carnage, he indeed starts to see bodies of security and others with protective helmets. These poor bastards' bodies are broken, if not from weaponry, then from a physical force. They have been decisively put down by something truly fearsome. As if on cue, he hears a distant echoing rattle and explosion. Hurrying out a back exit past the kitchens, he finds himself facing another hallway, with the options to go left or right. Rightwards, he hears the violent sounds still taking place deeper within the school. Not only that, but another visible body. This one was different though. It's clearly not made of flesh. The black metal that constructed this humanoid cyborg is obviously one of Ember's toy pet projects, though this one is very much deceased and separated from their head. He can't help but feel a touch of pride towards the defenders, having apparently managed to take one out. Though from the sounds of it, they are still contending with even more. Cole takes a step towards the body to investigate further, but the Manar beasts tug against him, as they have all of their focus aiming down the left. Glancing down that way, Cole smirks, seeing double doors, having been quickly welded shut from the outside. In fact, there's still a very subtle dying glow along the thick marriage of metals. He truly has only just missed the academic event, it seems. The defenders must have sealed this up and led the aggressors away in a form of self-sacrifice. Makes all the sense in the universe, considering it's his target. Stepping up to the double doors, Cole doesn't hesitate to hammer a powered kick upon the seal. To the world work and the door's credit, it almost holds up. Breaking the weld and lock from the impact, he pounds each door with the undersides of his fists, sending them swinging open in a flash. Within is a storage room. Along the walls are folded up chairs, tables, desks, boxes of seasonal decorations, and more unconscious bodies, with 3 perfect exceptions. 2 children and a dog. The Manarian pup is wearing a helmet that's far too big for him, while the Wataf seems to have been naturally immune to whatever toxin was used. Perhaps it's based on Wataf venom, which isn't unheard of. Though the animal standing between them and Cole is a true marvel. Not only is this canine breed proven resilient to such attacks, its impressive form gives the man a brief pause of admiring. She is a beautiful creature, her only fault being a breed created by the Zartok. Thieves, who stole one of Terran's greatest creations for their own purpose. The beast snarls a foaming mouth in a mightily aggressive stance, showing little if any fear towards Cole, and his own excitedly snarling Manar. Between the children they held an unconscious Noxie, perhaps a friend of Thatch, or the Cali bitch. The Manarian eyes the intruders without a spark of fear, though that's to be expected considering it's a natural aspect of his species. In contrast, the Wataf is nudging the Noxie in a panic, trying to stir him awake for help. "There you are," Cole chuckles, as he activates his helmet's recording feature. "Behold, Thatch. May this hopefully be the lesson you need, for what you're trying to do is now pointless. Hunt me in retribution if you wish, that is what I expect. But even if you succeed, your fire will be gone. I know you're going to watch this to the end, Thatch. You're going to hope it doesn't end the way I intend, but you will see. And it will break you for good." He unleashes his beasts. "Devour," he orders, causing the Manar to bound for their prey. Jamie stands up with a pee-wee baseball bat in his hands, a look of heroic defiance and determination. In his toddler mind, he's the awesome Aragorn standing before the opening gates of evil. The tin bat with a green foam handle, his mighty reforged sword, gifted by the weird elf guy that he never quite understood the reference of. "Farfro!" he screeches, before his sibling easily pulls him back down and tightly wraps him up in a protective coil. SJ hit their face, hoping by some miracle that their plated chitin will be resilient enough to survive what those Jamie-looking monsters can dish out, long enough for any help to arrive. They understand that Jamie cannot feel fear, nor the encoding that racks their senses. Yet SJ is going to protect their sibling, no matter what. They are going to make their mum so proud. They have to believe that, because any alternative is impossible to face. Zroom swiftly ducks away from one, and snaps up at the other of the two tails that lash out to strike her. Finding purchase, she shakes and tugs it in a murderous rage. The affected Manar screeches in horrid pain, as the underestimated animal easily breaks the bones and drags it a good few feet away from their intended prey. The other, seeming to have loyalty to its compatriot, turns to attack and handle the threat first. Flapping its wings in a leap, the Manar comes straight down on the dog and chomps over the narrow mane to find the spine. However, the beast can only manage to dig its double set of fangs into impressively dense muscles and ludicrously loose skin. Deciding the throat is the better target, the far lighter frame Manar tries to yank the back legs of the mutt with their tail grasper to aid in throwing the animal over to its side. Yet despite his tail being the stronger appendage, the powerful wire stance Zroom assumes with her front paws keeps herself upright. Then, with a final twisting snap, the tail grasper of the other Manar breaks free, causing blackish purple blood to be casted on the dog and fellow Manar. Her jaws now freed, Zroom snaps aggressively up at the beast, trying to force her to the ground. Flesh is out of reach. However, from her experience with Jamie, Zroom knows that will not be a necessary target. On her third twisting attempt, that causes her to finally fall over, Zroom's jaws clamp down on something fluffy and normally forbidden to so much as touch. Her dog ear nearly goes deaf from the screech that Manar releases, as its sensitive plume is locked in the mutt's unyielding maw. The beast drags every claw at its disposal to attack the dog in desperation, for the pain to cease. Enduring the many gashes being sliced on her back and side, without mercy Zroom yanked with all of her strength. The ripping and tearing of the plume cannot be heard over the agonizing sounds the beast bellows. It momentarily backs off with only a plume and a half, as it seems dazed and outright sickened from painful sensory overload. Dropping most of the frayed fur-like fibers in her mouth, Zroom swiftly squirms back to her paws and charges to take this perfect opportunity. However, having retreated to the ceiling during the struggle, the other Manar bounds straight down in a striking pose, invoking how they would normally hunt if the skies permitted. Perfectly landing on its target, the Manar manages to have just enough force to hammer the dog away and send her slamming into a tall folded table. The impact is harsh enough to cause it to topple over, right on top of Zroom. a sharp metal corner of the folding mechanism striking right in her ribcage, cracking bone. Both suffering from their injuries, the two Manar regroup and refocus on their immobile objectives. Like two pissed-off lions, they prowl towards their next meals viciously. But despite being in a school and picking up intense ringing in her ears, Zruum heard no fucking bell. Dragging herself free in a painful but effective jolt, Zruum charges for the two opponents with a vengeance. The Manar with the intact plumes picks up on the animal attack, but his tail can't counter in time, while the other is far too dazed to react effectively. Running along the side of the one with a damaged plume, Zruum strikes her jaws up to show this one how it's done. The Manar's thick throat is protected by a thick mane of fur and fuzzy skin that had a bit of give, but not nearly to the same degree as their dog opponent. Yet Zruum is undeterred as she clamps down and tackles the Manar down to its side in far easier fashion than it tried to do to her. The Manar's wings make it impossible to totally turn over, but it's enough for the dog to bite again, down closer to the jawline, where the grip is much easier to attain. The beast initially flails its claws at Zruum, feeling the air seal away, but it comes to a stop in a way that the dog doesn't expect. It goes limp, and releases a soft thrumming from its torso. Zruum doesn't quite understand the meaning. However, upon hearing the thrumming, the other halts its counterattack, and lowers its plumes and head in submission. In response, the dog slowly released the Manar in her grip, though still aggressively snarling and baring her teeth. Neither Manar makes any moves against the dog as she circles around them both, to put herself between them and the kids. The one with the broken tail simply lays down, and sets its head down on the shoulder of the other, making a more tender-sounding thrum. They might not hold fear, but the loyalty they have to one another far surpasses the orders given by the ape. They are done, and know when they are beaten. Covered in bleeding injuries, and her legs slightly shaking, Zruum focuses on the observing man, who has yet to make a single move. You are a magnificent credit to your true masters, and your ancestors. Cole genuinely compliments with a slight nod. Despite the Manar's failure, he takes immense pride in the companion of his species, proving themselves against the Manarians. Undeterred in protecting the children, Zruum rattles a threatening vocalization that promises the man death. Perhaps I should look into your breed for my people. But, unfortunately, this is where you face your end. I cannot allow them to live. No, you did well, Cole responds, as though the dog perfectly understands him. Reaching at his side, he pulls out a cylinder-shaped object that suddenly extends out into a staff. The end then bursts out an ice-blue crystal blade that resembles a boar spearhead. Walking up, he prepares his strike to be swift and as painless for the animal he found worth his sincere respect. Zruum braces, getting ready to attack the third contender as well. Then, moving his spear to strike, Cole feels resistance as something firmly takes hold of the other end, preventing him from following through. Using his helmet's features, he gets a view of what's behind him. A taut tether has wrapped itself around the other end of his weapon. It leads down the hallway, where one of Ember's damaged cyborgs is approaching. So, Ember and I have the same targets, do we? Cole states in an amused tone. Perhaps I should have foreseen that. The cyborg continues to approach, without making any response. Well, as appreciative as I am for the unexpected resurrection, I'm afraid I'm not, Cole starts to say, before the spear in his firm grasp deactivates his blade without his input. This is coming to an end, a fabricated feminine voice says, that made SJ peek, expecting to see their Aunt Donna awake, but no such luck, as the being speaks again in a different, unfamiliar voice. This is all going to end. Sam yanks the staff out of the man's grip, and arms herself with it. It sparks back to life and she assumes a combative pose. Her eyes appear dead on the inside, but the tone in her fabricated voice is determined in her goal. Her body is dented and has sustained several carvings of intense heat. Though one of her legs lags ever so slightly more than the other, she appears to have full mobility. "It's going to end now," she repeats in an eerie manner. Turning his back to the kids and dog, Cole amplifies his power armor's output as he takes another cylinder from his hip. "Ember put you up to this," he says in a low, threatening tone. "Quite the waste of resources on my part, if that was the case," he adds, as he looks at the damage this one sustained, and the dead one behind her. "You're a traitor, then. Suppose snuffing you out will grant me a bit of favor, Sam doesn't so much as blink to answer before lunging. Deflecting the strike for his neck, Cole counters as a second blade erupts from the base of his staff and sinks down into Sam's shoulder. It's then he realizes just how damaged this cyborg is. The gashes in her chest have exposed and half-melted components. The man figures she was banking on that one strike. Yet Sam isn't done. Taking hold of the spear, she causes it to deactivate upon her touch. With the blade no longer embedded, she closes the distance and hammers her spear staff against the man's helmet to cast him back before swiftly jamming her spear end for his gut. However, just like her ability to shut off the weapon via contact, the man's personal weapons refuse to bring harm to their master. Shutting off, all her strike accomplishes is to cause a hefty dent to form in a gut plate. Wheezing from the powerful impact nonetheless, Cole draws his pistol and takes aim. But just before he can pull the trigger, a swinging kick knocks his hand to the side. A blast of plasma fires into the wall, not a foot over Donna's unconscious body. Following up the spinning kick, Sam strikes twice with the staff against the man's helmet and protected neck. Tanking it, Cole thunders a fist forward, striking the cyborg's chest. Though from his gauntlet comes a burst of concussive energy. Having aimed for her already weakened center mass, he casts the cyborg to crash back against the floor. Before Cole gets the chance to shoot again, one of Sam's legs splits into tendrils like a cybernetic octopus and latches around his shin. His armor systems fritz and flicker out, but before the power armor would seize, as the cyborg plans, his ability to pull the trigger is unhindered long enough. Cole's plasma shot strikes the cyborg's chest, causing far more effective damage that seems to critically stun her. His armor systems don't restore, and the weight of it is all too noticeable, but he still has more than enough movement capability to finish the traitor. Suddenly, a painfully sharp and crushing sensation grips itself on the back of his leg joint between armor plates. Looking down, he sees the dog yanking at him in any attempt to cause damage, and to his genuine shock, it feels like it was more than possible to achieve. Since it's the leg being gripped by the cyborg's leg tendrils, his attempt to tear away from the dog is less than effective. "Off me!" he shouts, as the canine's teeth actually puncture the power armor's undersuits and dig into his flesh. Casting his hand down, he pistol whips the animal's head. Zoom is thrown away from the blow, utterly stunned, but in her mouth is a large patch of bloody undersuit. "I am Aragon!" a toddler's voice declares. Looking at the Manarian child fearlessly brandishing his bat again, Cole's patience has run dry. The recording won't show as he had hoped, but perhaps seeing the kid's remains with a plasma burn through the face would be more than enough. "Shut up!" Cole bluntly utters, as he lifts his pistol to shoot. However, another bite strikes his leg. Not wanting to lose a leg to this mutt, he shoots in the direction this time. But it just hits the bare floor, and the dog is still recovering from the strike. The Manar have retreated to nurse their wounds in a corner. Even the cyborg hasn't moved much, as her internals do all they can to repair the damage to an operational state. Confused, the man looks back at the Manarian again, But this time, an enraged and terrified Wataf stood defiantly between them, making themselves look as big and imposing as possible, while hissing aggressively. Rolling his eyes, he takes aim at the mutated centipede snake. Actually, he can't. In fact, Cole struggles to move at all. His body shakes in sheer willpower to move, but he just can't. Then it hits him, just as the foam begins to choke his failing breaths. "No, not you, vermin," he wheezes, as his lungs refuse to work. "No!" He somehow manages to drag a step towards the children, his mind envisioning every cool twist and break his bare hands will do to them. Before another step can be accomplished, his heavily armored body comes crashing down. Instead of meeting the end in an instant, his consciousness fades slowly like falling asleep, while in a floating coffin, about to drop off a waterfall. He doesn't know for certain if Ember will bring him back a second time, but if she does, nothing will stop him. Even if he has to fire a fucking volley of nuclear warheads at that Callie bitch and vermin children. Thatch will live long enough for that flame to hush out into a pathetic steam of smoke. He swears it, over and over again, until there's no life left within him. "Zoom!" Jamie calls out, after the foe falls dead, quickly waddling over to the struggling dog. SJ joins him, seemingly proud of their first injection of venom, even if they used all of it for the time being, though that pride is soon overwhelmed upon seeing the beloved dog's grave injuries. Zoom whines at the kids, before suddenly growling at the cyborg sitting up. "Aragorn, huh?" Sam asked with little inflection. "She named you that?" "No, only when I'm fighting bad guys. Who you?" Jamie asks, as his eyes dampen for Zoom. SJ hisses, as they recall this individual very well. "Bad guy," they hiss. "That's right. My name doesn't matter anymore, but it's Sam," the cyborg informs, as her leg struggles to reconfigure back into a single solid piece. "Like Samwise?" Jamie asks. "He good. Help heals room?" Sam shakes her head, her eyes actually expressing something other than a deep deadness. "No, I'm more like a ring wraith," she admits, before glancing down at the animal staring daggers at her. "But I can help." Getting up on her knees, she approaches. Both the dog snarls and Wataf hisses, but Sam pays them no mind. Reaching her hands over, her fingers spray something over Zoom, focusing on the most grievous of wounds. A strange form of stem foam develops, and seals up the bleeding, and offers immense relief to the animal. "She'll be better now?" Jamie asks. "She'll stay alive until a doctor or vet sees her. Don't move her, though," she says, before looking at the two Manar, especially the one with the bleeding tail. Getting up, she moves over to them, and with some snarling protest she manages to stop the bleeding in a similar manner. "I'd take them to be safe, but I'm in no condition to wrangle them. They should be docile, hopefully," she speaks, before looking at the unconscious bodies. "I'll treat the survivors with the antidote and leave. The chaos of the Union cleaning house should be a well enough distraction," she says, in an officer's voice that only Cole would recognize. SJ watches her move to Vin and Donna first, injecting them with a needle from her hand. "Why you help?" they finally have to ask. Sam moves to leave the room and shrugs. "Reality caught up to me, I guess. Seeing my family. Don't mind it. Just know your family will never see me again. One way or another." "Bore a mirror," Jamie addresses in realization. Looking back at the Manarian, from his childish mispronunciation of the first fallen member of the Fellowship, Sam shakes her head. "There's no redemption for me, but I can do what I can while I can. It's something, better than doing nothing. Goodbye. Be good to your mum. She's a good person. Looking down, the dead eyes start to leak. There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world, she silently quotes, as if almost in prayer, before leaving to tend to those afflicted by her once comrades.